Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm Julian here with my co-host B, and today we're going to be talking about robots. Very futuristic topic, very relevant topic, certainly exciting. Dude, I was fighting my urge to do a little robot dance, but I won't be that corny. I'll spare everybody. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about robotics. I mean, within that realm, we have to talk about AI a little bit in that space too. So before we pop it off, you got any entering thoughts?
No, there's so much to talk about. I'll let you
Yeah, oh my
just
God.
kick it off.
So much. Okay, with that, I'm gonna jump right into it. I think when we think robot, everybody has their, their general definition. Moreover, you probably can think of everybody probably has a quick go-to example in their head. But I want to start by giving just a super quick. I Googled robot and it says this is the definition I got. A machine resembling a human being and able to replicate certain human movements and functions automatically. Again, that's just a Google definition. I'll actually argue that a machine resembling a human being. I feel like there's plenty of robots that don't resemble a human being, but nonetheless, that just gives us kind of a baseline understanding of what a robot is. Also, in true rebel wisdom fashion, I want to kind of enter this conversation in maybe some experiences like we've had with a robot. Do we own any robots? I don't know, maybe just a cool example of something we've seen that's like, oh man, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I would like to just hear what you got on that. And I'll kick it off. One we're kind of just talking about, but I lied, I'm gonna give two. One that I've seen that doesn't resemble a human that I think is considered a robot is the home vacuum cleaners, right? I think that's becoming not common, but I've seen it literally in a couple people's home. Actually, I was just back home not too long ago and went to my buddy's parents' house and they had one in the corner. And for those that aren't familiar, it's kind of just like a flat, cylindrical kind of robot that just has a home docking station in the house and it'll just go around your house, vacuum stuff up. And from my understanding, I don't know how it empties, maybe the human empties it, but it goes back to its docking station and recharges and it just comes out whenever you set it. Pretty autonomous. I think that's pretty cool. And B, like I was just telling you, this one I hadn't really heard of, but I guess there's something similar that's a lawnmower that you place in your yard. It has a docking station and it'll map out your yard again automatically. It'll get that data. And then from then on, it whenever just cuts your grass, collects the clippings, and then that saves you some time cutting grass. I don't know. It's kind of cool. And it's funny because I feel the urge to say these are the primitive, lower level robots. When you think about it, even that's crazy. We have these things that can cut our grass for us and vacuum our house for us. That's not very low level at all. But in the space of robotics, maybe so. We'll get into that. I don't know. What is there any interactions you've had, things you've seen, something you own? I don't know that could fit this category.
No, dude, I guess the robots that we're talking about, I don't own one. I haven't
Yeah.
had too much interaction. Obviously, in the professional space, I dealt with robotics.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, besides robotics that you see in robotics, you don't have to, it's not definitely a human form. It's actual
Right.
robots doing
Right.
professional
Mhm.
work, which is also confusing because in the future, the robots could also be doing our work at the house
Oh,
or
yeah.
industrial, I guess, use cases and whatnot. But the only ones I dealt with is a factory setting, those kind of robots,
Right.
or it could be human operated or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. And on that note, I'm going to give the quick definition of robotics, which is the branch of technology that deals with design, construction, operation, and application of robots. So I guess that's more the behind the scenes or the making of a robot.
Mm.
And now that we're talking about this out loud in my head, I'm trying to think of, I think I have an answer, but what differentiates a machine from a robot? My computer is a machine, it's not a robot. And I'm thinking, tell me what you think, but this is literally just what's going through my head right now. I think there has to be some human-like element to the machine that deems it a robot, some kind of functioning arm or able to pick up, or maybe how it moves. Like what? I mean,
Yeah, I
obviously
think
we could easily Google this, but just like thinking out loud, like what differentiates a machine? Because if you have a conveyor belt, you just set something on it. It's just a belt that turns and it takes boxes to the end. That's not a robot. That's just a machine, a conveyor
yeah, I
belt.
don't know. Machine, I feel is like more encompassing. Like computer is a machine, right? And then it
Right.
does a lot, but the machines can also do physical stuff as in non-physical stuff. Where robots is generally more in the physical
Mm,
space, I guess. Like I said, in
okay.
the factory setting that we were talking about, or I was mentioning, because robots at the end of the day would fall under machines too,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
It's pure physical for now.
Right. And
No,
then
that
again, I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. But like robots have a software element. Like that's why you have AI within robots. Like we're
mhm,
gonna talk about humanoids a lot. Those are the human-like robots, but without the AI, like it's just a human-looking machine. I don't know, just a piece of hardware, damn near a statue,
mhm,
until you put the software and the programming and stuff in it. But yes, all robots are definitely machines. It's just all machines aren't robots.
mhm.
All right, let's get into this thing. Some robots. So like there's this is a growing space, rapidly growing, and like we were talking about before we kind of came live on camera here, there's so much we can talk about, which is why it's very exciting, and kind of like any direction we can take this. So just giving some of our thoughts, some of our opinions on it. I kind of like to think about this and just to wrap my head around where this new age robotics, new age robots is taking us. I kind of like break it into categories, and you feel free to like steer this discussion wherever, because I'm just diving into it. But like it's before you even get into the what already exists or what could become of this, fascinating to me is the industries that robots are already infiltrating. You might not see them a lot, but there's like robots in the medical field, and these are, now when I'm saying robots, these are I'm specifically referring to things that have like human like qualities or characteristics and capabilities. So if they either look like humans or if they don't, like have a lot of human kind of functionality.
Humanoid
Um,
robots?
yeah, but humanoids are, again, are they're built like a human. The four-legged
Mhm.
dog one that you sent me, I don't know if that constitutes a humanoid robot.
Oh, yeah,
Although it has
that's
legs that are, you know what I mean? I don't think that's a humanoid, but it has human-like functions and how it like walks and stuff like that, or animalistic really functions. You know what I mean? So I think humanoids are just the ones that are built physically looking like a human.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm trying to be careful with my wording, like human-like characteristics or qualities, because I think that can encapture that kind of like that dog-like robot too. Yeah. But we're seeing these in the medical field, the education field, the entertainment field, the creative field, the military field. Like they're starting, and again, I said we're seeing, you may not see it every day, or you may not have seen one at all. I mean, I granted haven't seen a lot, but just in kind of researching, or you catch some headlines, there's major advancements in all these fields with robotics specifically. And I mean, it's just like, how can one not think that's interesting? Like, where's this gonna, one, look like in the future? How is it helping those industries now? You already kind of mentioned, is it replacing jobs? It's crazy. So how you want to get in this? We could kind of, you want to pick a field, and I mean, there's so many ways we can go.
I wanna bring up just a robot. I just wanna bring up one of the
Heck yeah.
robots that I was looking
Okay.
up,
Okay.
and then let me just play this
You got a
clip.
video for us? Even better.
Yeah, let me
Optimus. Oh, yes, the Tesla.
yeah, so this is from Tesla, and obviously, like, previously, I was looking up just a whole bunch of startup companies that's, making robots, right? And from the research that I've looked into, it sounds like the one from Tesla here that shown in the video, I guess they're calling it Optimus, introducing Optimus
Yeah.
Gen 2. This
So
right?
straight from Transformers, by the way.
Yeah.
These names, and Bumblebee.
But right. The first one was called Bumblebee, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like Tesla is going to be the first one to hit the market unless something drastically changes.
Mhm.
Because at least from what Elon Musk was saying, at least I think from it's from 2025. I want to say it was in the Tesla earning call, which also happened earlier in this month. We're recording
Okay.
this in April. And what he was saying is this it might not be this exact robot, but at least a generation after or this one, I don't know exactly. But they're trying to make 5,000 by the end of the year
Mm,
to be mass produced. And
okay.
then from there, they want to make like tens of thousands, next year and
Okay.
then start hitting the market. Um, and I mean, this was, I don't know if you caught it, like obviously it walks really well, like
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
smooth. And then the one that I thought was kind of fascinating that we kind of
The
glossed
egg.
over, um, the scene that where it picked up the egg right here.
Yes, but so it's like not it's using a certain amount of pressure almost.
Yes, like it can tell by looking at certain objects, like how
Tactile
much
sensing.
pressure to put in to, it
Yeah.
says, handles of delicate objects.
Yep.
Uh, I mean,
Very
just
impressive.
from that alone, think about the use cases that it has. And I
Right.
think this one in particular, here, I'll stop sharing the screen. This one in particular, and all the other ones I was primarily looking into, you brought up the different sectors. I kind of focus more on the humanoid robots that kind of help you around the house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, obviously there's a lot of startups around the space. Like China is a big player.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, it's pretty much looking like for now, right now, US, China, and Japan are the major
Mhm.
players in this humanoid robot things.
From what I've seen, that's seems consistent.
And yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to take this conversation because I mean, the Tesla's was it Optimus? They called it, right?
Optimus, yeah.
Yeah. So from what I read, it was 5,000 this year and up to tens of thousands. They also used the figure 50,000 maybe next year or something like that. Maybe it's a
Okay.
year after. But then they want to price it around $20,000, which is
Mm,
expensive, right? I get
it
it.
is.
It is expensive, but it's not
Yeah.
unaffordable. Like
I
people,
honestly thought it would be more like for
right.
leading it like car like
I mean, think about it. Like
yes.
how many people buy brand new cars? Like a lot of people, like
Yeah, yeah.
majority of the population, they'll be buying new cars. Like middle class are buying new cars like crazy. But this is cheaper than a brand new car.
Right.
So it's not crazy to say $20,000 price point. Maybe, it might start out higher, but then as they
It can
mass
adjust.
produce
Yep.
it
Yep.
and technology in itself is deflationary. So the prices are going to come down.
Yeah.
So with the $20,000 price point, this is where I start thinking like I can see this thing inside a person's home.
Yes.
It might start out being that wealthy guy's home at first,
Yeah, oh,
but
it
then as
absolutely will.
time goes on, it's going to be like the upper middle class has it now, the middle class has it now, and then everyone else has it now.
Mhm.
And it's like a becomes a normal, I guess like normal day-to-day life that you're going
Yeah.
to interact with these things. And it's crazy because I think this will happen within the next 20 years, well
Oh,
within our
see,
lifetime.
people having them, absolutely. You think it'll be like predominant in the middle class well within our lifetime?
20 years, yes.
Ooh. So, okay. I mean, yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see that.
And I think the home one is very particularly interesting because I watched this video. I saved it. I'm not going to play it because it's a
Okay.
15-minute video, but the title of it, it's called Meet Neo, Neo, Your Robot Butler in Training. And it's a TED video. So, the presentation is really awesome. But it's so interesting with the AI thing. And this is kind of covers the AI and the humanoid robot inside the home, like kind of merging that together. And there's so many applications, right? Like the first we
There
talked
are.
about in a factory type setting where they're doing
Yep.
very repetitive task over and over to replace the more of like a minimum wage job type of
Right.
positions. And then what the video covered is, I mean, the video in itself was they're showing this humanoid robot that their company, their startup was making, and it's called Neo. They pointed at a very interesting experiment or data that they found, and they're kind of talking about it where in a AI robot in a factory type of setting, because they already tested this, the level of learning peaks out very rapidly, which is understandable, right? Like in like a factory setting, like thinking about like your like what your grandpa did in the factory that worked there for 40 years. Like they did the
Yeah.
exact same
Yeah.
thing for like 40 years, 8 hours a day, right? That kind
Yep.
of stuff. The learning stopped for the AI pretty quickly. I don't have a time frame. I don't know what
Sure.
quickly means, but compared to the humanoid robot at the home, like home is like we kind of
More
take
of
it
a
for granted because we
yeah.
kind of live in it every single day. And what we do inside a home, anyone can do like at a pretty young age. But if you think about it, it's pretty complex, right?
Yes. It's more
Like
dynamic,
doing
maybe
dishes
yeah.
is like
Yeah.
instead of I guess you can just throw it in a dishwasher too, but like at least you rinse it all, you turn on the water, you gotta delicately handle the dish, put it inside the dishwasher,
Mm.
fill it up, close it, put the the detergent in it. That's like a complex operation. But that's one little example at the home. Making the bed, cleaning, doing
Yes.
simple cooking.
Yes.
And what this company found was the more complex the operation is, like the more efficient, not efficient isn't the right word, but like more of the capacity of the AI is utilized to its like full functionality.
That makes sense,
And
yeah.
that makes
I
sense.
mean, that's
It's interesting that that's like how a human brain like develops too.
mm.
And I just thought, I mean, that's when you say it's obvious,
I
but it
never thought
is
about that.
still interesting. So they're talking about how AI and home robots are going to be the perfect mix because home is it's it's so complex, but it's not complex enough where a human robot cannot do pretty
Right.
much every task in the house.
Yes. Yes.
And then from a looking into the future standpoint, right? The home is crazy. So this is how
I have so many thoughts.
dude, this is how I imagine personally from looking at all these videos and reading these articles on what the robot future is going to be, humanoid robots in particular, is, and we kind of talked about it before the podcast too. I think it's gonna start out expensive and very specialized into tasks that it can do. And,
Yes.
you know, at first it might just cut carrots or peel potatoes
Right.
or some doing very
Which is
simple stuff.
which is certainly not worth $20,000, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna
right.
get into that too. Yeah.
But then as this technology evolves, like they were giving some examples of okay, let me I'm gonna read you I'm gonna read this I want to read this quote.
All right.
Um and I was posting a bunch of articles, bunch of YouTube video scripts into Chat GPT, and then we're just kind of talking about the future
Of
um
robotic or of
of
like
robots, yeah.
human yeah.
And then listen to the little Chat GPT was like, I wrote a natural sounding story that you can share in your podcast about 30 to 45-second long, and typed up this little
Mhm.
story of a day in the life with your humanoid robot in 2050.
Mm.
Right. So let me read you this. I'm literally reading it verbatim from
Yes.
ChatGPT what they said. So
Mm.
you wake up to the soft hum of your home's AI assistant syncing with your humanoid robot who's already prepped your breakfast, eggs cooked perfectly, coffee poured at just the right temperature. As you stretch your robot, sleek, human shaped, but clearly not pretending to be too human, lightly knocks on your door. It reminds you of your 9 a.m. meeting, offering to iron your outfit while you shower. On your way out, it hands you a packed lunch, tidies up the kitchen right behind you, then checks the smart sensors on your aging parents' home down the street, offering to send one of its maintenance drones if needed. In the evening, as you walk back in, your robot has vacuumed, organized the mail, and even ordered groceries based on your usual patterns. It's waiting for you at the door, sensing your facial expressions that you had a stressful day. So it recommends a playlist, dims the lights, and offers to start cooking dinner. By bedtime, it's recharging itself silently in the corner, already scanning the next day's weather, traffic, and calendar to plan how it can make tomorrow even a smoother day for you. So that's 2050, and I'm not gonna lie that could see that becoming a reality. To be
Honestly,
honest,
that robot sounds lazy. It said while I shower, it should be washing me. It could do more.
it could be. It
No,
could be.
dude, that's way more than I would have thought of. Like the checking on your parents, sending drones. Like, I mean, the facial recognition and sensing your emotions. That's not surprising. I've seen there's a lot of, I guess, primitive robots out there that are doing that, and that's how they interact with people. They're like scanning your face. But no, that's wild. Both kind of frightening. Not from a robot getting to intellectual standpoint, but almost like you're not losing sense of humanity, but it's like, what are we gonna do? Right? That gives you the space to be extremely efficient as a human, which efficiency is always welcomed. Like that's good. But it's almost like, dang, it's like, is that too much? Like, I don't know. But so I say frightening, but also extremely fascinating and exciting too, to kind of see like that unfold, or if that actually works that well.
Yeah, I want to go into the humanity piece that you just kind of brought up.
God.
Humanity itself, I think, is an interesting topic within these robots
Yeah.
because, man, I wish the AI revolution that we're going through already kind of played out because there's so much overlap and stuff that we can talk about between AI and robots.
Yeah.
But remember the conversation of like, we did the AI episode before,
Mhm.
and we talked about humanity and AI where in the future is AI going to just do everything? Where maybe that might be the case, but I would like to think of AI and robots in this case as well, not to replace humans, but to be the perfect human companion,
Yes.
right?
I think if they
So,
replace humans, we're screwed. The ultimate goal is to be the perfect
right.
companion, as you
Because that's
stated.
what they
Yeah.
were saying, like with AI, oh, like AI is gonna just replace humans. Like we're not gonna have to think, we're not gonna have to do anything, blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Like, we're gonna just sit in this clear coffin type thing and just get fed
Yeah.
dopamine 24 hours a day,
Right.
and you're just kind of like a vegetable that's living for 100 years with a constant dopamine hits, right? But I everything I hear about AI, I feel like I can definitely apply to robots. They're saying the same thing. It
Mhm.
sounds
Similar.
similar, but I don't. The point that I want to get to is these technologies are, I think, enhancing humanity because the point of it is not to replace humans, but to be the companion where humans get to do the human things.
Yes.
Where robots, they're doing the AI stuff, but at the end of the day, it's a code, right? So they're not
Yep.
the purpose of these humanoid robots is not to make decisions that affects your life, right? That's where
Yes.
the humans come in. That you're the decision maker,
Yes.
where the
Yes.
robot is just the handy servant that you have employed.
Yes.
So I think that's more of the better picture where doing laundry and ironing your clothes, cooking a little breakfast, like that's not the human aspect that I want to strive for. Like that's not like what humanity is about to me.
Right.
Humanity is like those are the
Right.
little annoying tasks that someone else
Yeah.
can do while you get to like, if you're an artist, for example, if you just love art so much, you love painting so much, you don't need the robot to freaking paint for you. You want the
Yeah. You.
robot to do everything else in life so you can focus on painting
Right.
and the
Yeah. I got you.
creative aspect of it. So I
Yes.
think that's gonna be an interesting like I think we will come through that dilemma crossroad at some point in the future.
Okay. And there's two on that note, there's 2 points I can see where it's like it comes to a level of advancement or in the spirit of trying to aid, but trying to perfect aiding where it could be too much. And I'm gonna give a very basic example, like the laundry, right? I don't think laundry is part of the human experience. It's just a necessity for health. You need clean clothes to stay healthy, to stay fresh, to stay clean, right? So robot knocks it out easy. But what if there's certain stuff that like maybe you wore once, you just threw it on to like run outside and run back in, took the shirt. Like it doesn't need to be washed. Or it's a shirt that if washed, it gets ruined. It has to be dry cleaned. And sure, once you tell the robot that once, like it knows now not to wash the shirt, but like it just grabbed it to wash before like you told it. Now like your shirt's ruined. There could be little cases like that where it's trying to get to this level of like predictive performance. Like you said, like it starts to learn your routine. So it's doing things before you command it to. But in its, I guess, coding programming, you told it to, in quotes, once or multiple times. So now it's developed like pattern recognition. But like this time, because we're humans and it's not always consistent, you didn't want to wash. You didn't want to wash that shirt or whatever. And now it's doing little things that are actually counterproductive. Do you think that could exist? And on that note, you taught me a long time ago a Japanese quote where it's like, what is it? Where you try to help, but you actually hurt? Remember you told me something
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
called 小さな迷惑は大きなお世話.
What's that translate to?
Basically means small acts of kind gestures lead
That.
to more problematic
Mm,
things.
that.
Like
Yes.
where like example is like you're a big baller, right? In terms of the sport aspect.
I was about to say, yeah, well, it depends what you're talking.
Like let's say like you're like every Thursday you go to the gym to the hoop to go
Right.
hoop.
Yep.
And then me seeing that pattern, I'm like, oh, Julian always goes to the gym on Thursday. He always
Yeah.
brings his basketball. You know what? Like the ball feels a little deflated. Let me pump it up for him.
Mm,
Right. But then without in your head, uh the how inflated the ball is like the perfect for how the basketball is supposed to
right.
be. I don't know
Right.
that. I don't know
Right.
if it bounces when I drop it and it comes back like above my hip, then I'm sure it's like, oh, that
Yeah.
looks good. So I pump it up, and then you feel the ball. You're like, what is wrong with my ball? It's like, all right, whatever. You go play. You have an awful day because you're using a different ball. It's like that's. I tried to do a little small gesture to be nice, but then it
Right.
ended up being more problematic because of it.
Beautiful example, and thank you for reiterating that quote. Stuff like that, I just don't know if a robot, humanoid or not, whatever, can discern between that. Um,
No, but
and that probably be easy to overcome. These are super small examples, right? You can tell it like, "Hey, never wash clothes unless I give you the prompt," or something, whatever. But just trying to challenge that thinking.
you're right. And yeah, I think there's two answers to that. And the first you kind of covered. Like I think at that point, the robot AI software will be able to learn
Mm-hmm.
those things that you don't want it to happen.
Yep.
You know, and I think for most cases, you can preemptive or proactively like before it happens, you can tell it like, hey, I bought these new pants. I don't like when pants are dried because it shrinks. So you make sure you just wash it. All pants, just wash, take it out before the dryer, and just hang it up. Don't put it in the
Exactly.
dryer. I think you can. I think it would be smart enough to learn that.
Yeah, I think so
Even
too.
if it doesn't, I think the minor inconveniences definitely do not outweigh the major benefits it has around the house. So yes, it
I
could
got
be
you.
annoying, but like it's more annoying not to have the robot.
I got you. Yes. Okay, valid point. And then also, this is just kind of something I thought was funny in what you said. Um, you gave the example of a robot being able to like do your dishes. Well, we have a dishwasher, but like it can like put the detergent in, put the plates in, rinse it first, whatever. I just think that's ironic how, and maybe not because it's like the evolution of machinery, but in that case, a dishwasher, right? We already have something that severely cuts down the time of us washing dishes where we just rinse it off, put a little pot or whatever in, and the machine does it. But now we're having it remove even more human steps or for a robot to take it to a machine and put in the dishwasher, or if it doesn't wash the dishes itself, which I just think is just more funny. If anything, I'm really just bringing up how that's kind of ironic, or we're talking about how robots can displace humans, but they're also going to displace more primitive types of machinery.
Mhm.
um and I don't know, I just think that's funny. And also, speaking to, I guess, the price point, which you kind of, I don't know if they're set at all, because the Tesla hasn't rolled out these Optimus or Bumblebee, which is still hilarious to me that they're taking Transformer names.
Mhm.
um but I think it's like a threshold, right? These only will be worth it, even if the price point is way lower, when the robots are much more general than specific. Because
Yeah.
right now, from what I perceive, is a lot of robots, and now we can expand out. I'm gonna expand outside the humanoid robots a little bit. Are very specified, right? You have in the realms that I named before. You have robots or robotics showing up in education, military, entertainment, and none of these are like cross functional. So like these robots, right, can only have one, maybe can only fold and do dishes. Like, is it worth X amount of dollars? It only becomes worth it, in my opinion, when it reaches a certain level of like generality. Like if it can vacuum, cut the grass, do dishes, do laundry, take the trash out, like, which, I'm sure we'll get there. And that would just be an insane amount of coding. And also just insane to see. But you know what I mean? Like, as of now, most robots, although the tasks that they can do are extremely impressive and stuff like we've never seen, or even just conversation. Like some robots are just to be conversational, but like the kinds of conversation they can hold are incredible, and those conversations are becoming more human-like, making it kind of like almost weird, but I guess more normalized for the human experience. But again, they're not. A lot of them aren't cross-functional, and maybe that's what Tesla's trying to get at and brand these as like within the household. These will be
Mhm.
very cross-functional, but I don't think they'll be worth it from this level, from people owning it for house help, whatever, until they get very generalized. Because typically, for any product, you buy it with one intent. Like, I bought this microphone to digest audio and transmit it to my computer, or whatever. Like, but if I have an AI robot, maybe I could be like, "Hey, bot, come here. Stand here while I record this podcast and be my microphone." And I just talk to the robot, and it is a microphone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it can literally do. I need to record something outside so I can send to my landlord because my back patio is cracking in half. Like, hey, snap a picture of this back patio and send it to my landlord and tell him
That
I need somebody.
I
Like,
actually like
can't
that. I can see
just
that's a useful feature right there.
everything. Yeah, my book stand broke. Like, hey, fix this book stand. Hey, it gets very broad in its task.
Yeah,
I think
you're
that'll be
right.
interesting.
I agree with you, and you're right. I don't know your thoughts are on after, but I think generally speaking, I think it's logical to think that it's gonna be more specialized first with
Has
as
to
the
be. Yeah, yeah,
technology advances, and it'll be more generalized.
yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
you think about look at major advancements in technology. I say recently, but like in the last few hundred years. But you look at electricity. Electricity first happened to put a light bulb in your house to replace like
Mhm.
candles and sunlight. But look at electricity right now. It's used for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally everything.
Diversifies. Yeah.
Look at look at the
The
internet
phone,
or look
I
at
think, or
computers.
internet.
Like computers
Yeah.
were originally designed to do calculations really fast. I mean, computers everything right now.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
like, think cell phones. It was
Yeah.
originally to call again, and
Call.
you can do everything now.
Yep.
So I think robots, sure, maybe the first application maybe just folds laundry, and it might be expensive, and it will be the I don't want to say rich people, but
Yeah.
people with discretionary income or money that they can spend on these.
Hmm.
They're the early adopter, they're the enthusiasts.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
like the technology more than
Yeah.
the price point, so they get it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
as stuff goes on, more and more people will get it. And I do think it's gonna be that generalist
Yes.
form ve- rather quickly because we were talking about the idea of every 100 years, the technological advancements that happen in that 100 years, it could be any year. We can say from 2025 to 2125. The next 100 years has more technological advancements packed in those 100 years than all the previous years combined. So if you draw that in a graph, it's like exponential. So I'm kind of thinking, look how, computers, like with like a semiconductor chip in it, they kind of started getting developed like really truly around like, I want to say like 1970s,
You know
80s
better than
type
me.
time
That's
frame.
yeah,
Uh,
late 1900s.
and then look it to where would you say maybe 2010, where like pretty much majority of the people that wanted computers could just have computers at their home, like a laptop, desktop, whatever.
Yes.
So,
Not only
that's
that, it almost became, dare I say, like necessary, kind of.
yeah, you're
Like
right.
modern society, you kind of need a computer in some capacity, or at
Right.
least access to like a free library, but like, yeah, phone, something. Yeah.
And then when did the I'm gonna say first iPhone release? That was in 2007. So like a true like a modern age smartphone came onto the market 2007. And by 7 years later, I'm thinking 2014, that was my senior year of high school. Everyone pretty much has smartphones.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that the time difference right there is like 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And then with AI in itself coming as like a technology that's going to be super advanced, I could see these. What I'm trying to say is technological advancements of these robots. I think it's going to be faster in adoption and use cases than
Got
the
you.
previous technology that's like coming onto the
Whoa.
market as like a life-changing, human history-changing level of technology, which I
Yes.
do think robots are to that level.
Okay. I'm gonna add to that. I think, yeah, AI. I'll put AI/robots. Yeah. We did an episode about transportation and how there's like eras where you have certain transportation, and then like you said, there is a global level change of some invention that changes transportation, and then it's mass adopted, and like now it's the new norm. It's next to a necessity. Everybody has it. Everybody uses it, and I do agree with you that this is going to be the next thing. I don't. I don't know if it'll happen as soon as like phone. We have phones, and then this is like almost like a new product. Whereas like we had an old school phone, and then like the phone itself developed. Whereas like AI, I mean, I guess it's an extension of computer processing, computing power, whatever. But it gives, and robots, right? It gives more of a like this is a like Genesis level event. Like this is a creation rather than a like advancement. I mean, it's an advancement. You know what I'm trying to say? Is this making
I
sense?
I do
It's
think,
more of
yeah,
like,
the barrier is so different because I'm trying to compare it to
yeah,
something that already happened where before
me too. Yeah,
smartphones, we had phones.
we had
And then
phones.
when the smartphone came, there was this like massive jump in this technology. And then like
Hmm.
smartphone, you can kind of say as like a technology in itself started booming, right? But then I think it's
Right.
similar to robots though, because we already do have and dumb is pretty
Sure.
smart for
Right.
I
Right.
say
Right.
dumb, but it's still pretty smart. Like the iRobot room, like the Roombas with the robot vacuums. Those are robots doing home tasks, but just like very specialized, not as smart as what the future robot's gonna be.
Yes.
And then when the
Yes.
humanoid comes, that's like the iPhone moment of like there's a big leap in
Yes.
technology from the original intent of how robots were created for the home. And then the humanoid robot technology in itself will be the category and just go crazy from there.
Yes. Yes. I agree. Well, that was well put. And to elaborate on what I was saying before about the generality, like specific robot versus a general robot, in its ability to do tasks, I think that will impact its ability to roll out just due to, I mean, two things, like the price point is going to influence how many people have it, obviously,
Mhm.
but then also you have to justify that. So if something's again $20,000 and can do, two household things, cool. Like you said, the people with more disposable income, higher wealth typically will probably have it. But once it's maybe even still a high price point, maybe that price point comes down a little bit, but it's more general and like can actually serve you more as whatever you need it to. I think saying also say in state, I agree with you. I think it will be rolled out in masses. It's just what does that timeline look like?
What do
Which
you
would be
I like so I have my own thoughts on the timeline, but what do you think of the timeline?
I don't know because we can already. That's a bad example. I'm trying to, and I also said I want to try to keep this away from AI as much as possible, which is nearly impossible. But I'm looking at ChatGPT, fairly new thing. I hear about it daily almost. A lot of people use it, but there's not a physical product that you need to obtain, and it's free. It's like open source. There's free models, so like very obtainable if you have a computer, phone, etc. Whereas for humanoid robot, that's not the case. There's a physical product, so the adoption of that is you can't really compare it. Um,
You're
I don't
right.
know, dude.
Yeah.
It's what you said like 2050. You said about 20. Would you say like 25 years? You think it'll be?
I
Well, how
think
about
it'll
the?
be
You think before that?
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like right though. I mean, looking at history, we're adopting things faster. It's going to be exponential. I feel like at least. And are we talking about till like the general, like it makes its way to middle class, or are we just talking about like it's in homes, some level of
I
home?
will say to middle class because when it's in the middle class, that's like generally mass
Right, right,
adopted.
right. I'm gonna say at least. I think at least 20, 25 years.
You think so to the middle class?
Yeah, but then I'm probably on lower, maybe like 20 years
Okay, so that's still 2045.
because even if it becomes more affordable and more justifiable, I think there's going to be an element of, humans resist change, right? This is for all intents and purposes, a newer concept to human existence. So there's going to be a camp of people that are like, I can afford this. It would actually even be cool to have, but like, I've seen too many movies. I don't even want to introduce this to my life. Like, these things need to be around for like 50 years for me to be like, okay, they're safe. You know what I mean? Um, but it's funny because I say that and you have Teslas, you have Waymos, right? A self-driving car with nobody in it. So people have similar thoughts. Like, I see it's working for other people, it's cool, but like I refuse to take this because never before have we seen something that transports humans with no human interface. So for that reason alone, like I talked to my parents or grandparents about this, people with a more traditional mindset. That's not what they grew up on. And they're like, no way, I'm never getting in that thing. Even if you show them statistics where I'm gonna use Waymo, which is a self-driving company, as an example. Like it's been proven that have minimal to no fatalities, less accidents. It's like even if data says it's safe, they still won't trust it just from their human experience. It's like they're not used to it, they haven't seen it, so like they don't need it. I think there'll be some element of that human psychological aspect that will prevent people for a while until it just takes out and it's like, okay, it's been around for long enough. We see enough people have it, they're good. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's what I think pushes my timeline a little bit further than yours. But you make so many good points where it's like history shows like Tesla adopted like ChatGPT, iPhones, all these things that were like groundbreaking technologies that people for a minute were like, they're here. They're used by middle class so
dude. Actually, you did bring up a good point that I really didn't consider: the human and government level interventions
government too, yeah.
that could delay stuff. Dude, I mean, that's a very valid point that I didn't really think about. Because at least from my timeline, it was just on the technology side.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, you're right. There could be a variable depending on.
Mhm.
I would say from the government side
Government, yeah, yeah.
because these robots, right? I think there is a definitely major difference in thinking from your parents' generation
Mhm.
to our generation.
Yes, without
I
a
think
doubt.
we are less resistant to change. We are much
Yes.
more open minded in the new technology coming. Because like when did ChatGPT start becoming like an everyday thing? Probably like a year ago, right?
I was gonna say like 2, 3, was it maybe 3 years ago. Yeah, but like
Yeah, okay. In the
very
last,
recent history.
to confidently say in the last 3 years that people
Yeah.
actually started, not that,
Yeah.
that it was developed, like actually started using
Actually.
it. Like
Yep.
for me, for example, you can put the widgets on your iPhone or iPhone
Yeah.
screen,
Yep.
the home screen. In the
Yep.
very first page, I have a big Chat GPT widget where I can
Yeah.
just immediately type
Click it.
in. There's a microphone button, just tap it and just speak into it, and it gives me the answer.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT pretty much every day,
Yep.
which is crazy to me, like how fast. And you're right. I think software in itself is more scalable, easily
Much
scalable than
more.
hardware integrated stuff. So you're right. Like software will have much more reach and quicker
Mhm.
adoption. But that literally became a thing, like at least in my personal experience, like within a year. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty fast for
Quick. Yeah.
adoption.
Yes.
So with the robot thing, at least from my timeline, is assuming that we have a humanoid robot on the market by 2025, latest 2026.
Yeah.
That's going to fuel competition. That's going to just accelerate
True.
everything faster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do appreciate, there's so much hate for Elon Musk and the Cybertruck, but then like Tesla as a company, I think they serve their purpose in humanity's like history for doing good, because and I think we kind of talked about this before, where do you think electric vehicles would have been invented if Elon Musk wasn't here? Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely
Yes.
do think
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But then it's more the timing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be naive to say if Tesla had nothing to do with the history or advancement of electric vehicles. Like I would at least like to say, at least Elon Musk, this is what he says. He's proud that Tesla, for sure, at least advanced the creation of, I guess, the mass adoption of electric vehicles by at least
Right.
5 years.
Mm.
Because I mean, they
Yeah.
are the best electric vehicle on the market right now. And I say bet because they'll throw a lot of stats. Like, well, what about this one? What about this one? But look at the cost. Like per dollar, how much utility do you get? You're not beating a Tesla right now. Right. In the future, I think that could change. Definitely. History suggests that
Right,
there's,
yeah.
rise and fall of these companies.
I got
So
you.
in that space, I think that could kind of apply to the robotic space as well. If they're the first to market and that fuels the competition, that just drives up the investments in the robot sector. Like they're not even like its own sector right now, but they're gonna be. I'm sure they're gonna be their own sector in the stock market of these robot
Yeah.
companies. And then if Tesla and Elon Musk and what they do advanced, how fast these robots become mass adopted by the general masses by at least a day, that's a success, right?
Interesting.
So
I can reframe that.
yeah, and then Tesla in itself is, I think it's such a interesting thing to talk about. I want to get, and after this, I want to get back into the year prediction that I was kind of looking at too, like when these robots going to get adopted. But like we talk about money a lot on the show, and then we haven't necessarily talked about the Tesla stock, but Tesla stock is a very widely talked about stock
Yeah.
in the stock market for many
Which,
different reasons.
for obvious reasons. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because a lot of people argue about the valuation of the Tesla stock or the company in itself. And when you look at Tesla in the surface of the company, you would think it's a car company, right? I
Mhm.
don't think you're wrong to say they're a car company. But look at their valuation. Their valuation is like they're the number one valued car company in the world without doing all the previous the sales to justify it, right?
Yeah.
How are they above Toyota? It just doesn't make sense. But then you kind of start digging, but there's so much business model behind Tesla. Like you have the car, it's like a Mazda's like a car company.
Yeah.
But think about the technology. You have the battery business.
Yep.
The battery's gonna be like a EV battery business is gonna be a huge thing in the future. And just batteries in general is gonna be huge. You have the data of data and the software side of autonomous driving and the
Nice.
data that it collected by driving millions and millions and
Yeah.
millions of miles from the users of Tesla driving Tesla. Right? So this data is another thing. And then you also have robots in this case now.
Yeah.
In the video that I watched, one of the videos I watched kind of talked about Tesla in that way where they're not necessarily focused on EVs. They're focused on robots that can drive.
Like technology. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
robots that can drive is their EV
Mm,
business.
mm.
And now you're looking into a similar like a AI software where like a recognition of stuff that could be implemented into robots. And then the
Mm.
battery that you can use for the cars can be within robots too to,
Right, right.
generate a lot
Yep,
of use
yep.
time without charging. So when you think about it like that, Tesla, like you look at Tesla in a complete different way, and then what they predict as a company is this humanoid robot, I guess, department of Tesla will be much, much, much bigger than the EV side in a
Interesting.
very relative time. So
Mm.
think of a Tesla stock in that way, and just kind of start thinking about it just kind of changes your mind about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you completely reframed that. You sound like a paid sponsor. It's funny.
No,
But
I don't
I
I
know.
don't I don't own a Tesla. I don't own
Yeah.
any Tesla product. I don't own the Tesla stock. So I have
Right. It's
nothing to
fun.
show, but I think it's
Right, right, right.
interesting because the stock is very the company in itself is very controversial.
Mhm.
And I just think it's interesting. Back
When you get down
to
to the bare bones of it, yeah, that's true. And they're about to roll out a
the
also they're
robo
about to enter
taxi.
the self-driving space.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. Which kind of aligns with kind of what you were saying. It's not just about the car. I mean, it's still the car, but um which is very interesting. I think me and you talked about it. Like you could do what's the car rental app? Turbo or whatever?
Turno?
Turno? Turno?
Yeah, Turno.
Okay. I heard on a podcast that, certainly Tesla is about to they're entering the self-driving space. I mean, it's already like a capability built in Tesla. But I think it was like you can now what I'm about to say is like unsubstantiated. I don't know how true this is, but like you can when you're not using your Tesla, maybe like loan it out for like autonomously. And it could be a part of the self-driving fleet, like when you're not using it, which
Yeah.
optimizes like your use or ownership of the Tesla. And I mean, it's now makes money for you. Like that's
We
just a
talked
crazy
about it
new
in our
concept.
podcast.
Yeah, 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 okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But
Like,
it was cool because as a mindset thing, they framed where it's gonna be taking the car rental space and then combining it with the Airbnb like
yeah, that's
like
yes.
side of thing. Cause like that sounds I remember talking about it. It sounds confusing at first where like Airbnb, you can get like a super low budget Airbnb that you just need like a place to live that's very
Mhm,
flexible. You can
mhm.
leave whenever you want type of thing, where you just want the experience, that
Right.
super fancy mansion that you stay in for $1,000 a night with all
Yeah.
your buddies. Like that's two different sides of Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of framed it where there's going to be so many different Tesla models that while these robot taxi features enabled on your Tesla, it just starts driving away using it as a taxi for other people.
Yeah.
And you can get the budget one, right? You just want to get to point A to point B.
Mhm.
Or you can get like the super expensive newest model Tesla with all of the technology
Yes.
packed for, quadruple the rate, but then you're
Right.
kind of experiencing it like,
Mhm.
to fit your, I guess it's just entertainment at that point, right?
Right, right.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be a crazy.
It will be.
That's
And I do think whatever my timeline or is your timeline, I think we're gonna see almost everything we've talked about thus far today in our lifetime.
yeah.
Now with that being said, I wanna kinda steer this conversation away a little bit from Tesla and the humanoids, or at least we've pretty much only talked about the humanoid robotic use in the confines of our homes, right?
Mhm.
So I wanna expand that a little bit, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So we introduced government actually, so this might be a good segue. And why I thought, maybe it'll push back the timeline a little bit due to just human psychology or government, right, red tape. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Just like they have to like standardize it in safety precaution, you know, whatever
Government intervention.
regulations, maybe. Yeah, interventions, regulations, I think is the word I'm looking for. All that stuff. But now you take this robotics and like look at, I don't know, maybe like the government use. So there's been a lot of ways these are being militarized, and not necessarily the humanoids, but just the advancements of these robots. And I guess this kind of ties government, Tesla, and everything because didn't Trump, he just got some Cybertruck, like he bought, I don't know, but like the government had X amount of Cybertrucks, I think like armored, and they were using them in some capacity. I never heard what, but like a small, like, you know, a number of Cybertrucks, and they were essentially militarizing Cybertrucks. So you take this in a similar form, and these advancements of robotics, like these are without a doubt already are being militarized and will continue to be like militarized. And who knows what the future of that will look like. But just to name one, again, that's far from humanoid, but I saw this video of a little sphere, and I think this was just in concept, but it rolls around. It's literally a ball. Picture a basketball with two cameras that protrude out of the side that are
Mhm.
protected though. So, and it rolls, but what made it unique is it's about the size of a basketball, and it can go on land or water. So I don't know what material it is, but it rolls off land into the water, and then it's buoyant. So it also uses the rolling inertia or whatever in water to like steer and stay afloat. And it's seamlessly transition, and it's just for like surveillance, maybe intel
Mm.
collection, and it's not armored, but it's just a hard material. Yeah, and it sounds pretty simple, but yeah, it could be controlled, it could be autonomous, like programmed, whatever. And just, you know, back to the dog thing that we talked about, the dog robot, which we
It's a
don't have a
horse.
video of. Horse. They have like, yeah, horse, dog, whatever, four-legged. What I say, I think quadruped robots, I think are what they're called. There's US videos, again, I don't think they're being rolled out, but US experimenting with these quadruped, whatever robots with guns mounted, and there's other countries that are doing the same. And
That
they're very stable. They kind of mimic these, you know, animalistic kind of movements to like stabilize. And it's just, we're seeing these robotic advancements pretty much everywhere. And again, who knows where I saw one today, dude, where it was like literally it was a big, they used like they used it, they meters. I forgot how many meters tall it was, but picture like height wise, like the size of a house. Like it was a big, literally like a transformer style robot that had like some type of launcher on one arm, a claw on another arm. It showed it like rolling through piles of metal, like it generated force, and the engine it used was comparable to like, I don't know, like a diesel truck. Like it was a literal killing machine that you've only seen thus far in movies. And it's just like, what's the end look like? You know, how far could we take this? And I have to mention the movies in this episode. There's so many movies over the course of time that just play with these concepts of like highly militarized robots, or human-like robots that are deceptive as humans, or just like whatever. And we're kind of starting to see them, to the point that Tesla literally named its first two robots Bumblebee and Optimus, which is directly out of a classic movie that we all know and love, like Transformers. Like these movies are starting to be almost become predictive in what we'll see, or like what could maybe be. And yeah, I feel like we just have to mention that to some aspect. But
yeah,
I mean, it's
military side.
cool, but
That's the scary side. That's the
that,
scary
yeah,
side of things
like,
because
right, when you start weaponizing them, and you know, people, the first question I think in all of this AI robots, the luring question is, what happens when they become self-thinking? Um, Experts in the field have said we're far away from super intelligence, which is, I think, the term in the field when they can think for themselves. Because right now, AI cannot think for itself. It can only be programmed up to, you know, what is coded or whatever. They can't, quote unquote, think for themselves. But when they can, if they can, um, when you start thinking of it's one thing to have a robot that vacuums your house thinking for itself, like, all right, cool, I can stomp on that or whatever. When you have these weaponized, gun mounted, militarized robot, if, you know, super intelligence is added to that realm, now it's like, all right, what?
Okay,
Yeah.
I do want to say I do want to add a couple things to this military stuff. Now that you're talking about it,
Yes, sir.
so at least in I don't know how much you know about the coding side of things,
Not a lot.
but you heard the term open source before, right?
Yes.
Okay, so open source basically like we can go look at the code
Yep.
of these things, and then that's I don't say it's controversial because it's not controversial, but you can think about that's some companies kind of IP level technology, right? Like you don't want these things to be stolen,
Right.
but from a ethics standpoint, it's like the right thing to do where the code is transparent.
Transparency.
And I think being open source is going to be the most important thing for these AI type, not just AI, but these robot things, right? Because AI is one thing. If you're just talking to a chatbot, which I do want to tell a story about that later, like you doesn't do too much harm. But
Right.
then
Yeah.
where AI is integrated with this actual hardware machine that could do some bad, like that's
Right.
scary. And that's where the open source is so critical that like you gotta have these experts like triple, quadruple, 100
Yes.
times checking, making sure the code is not
Yes.
gonna has the enough interlocks placed into the code to not do that.
Right.
Where and also the open source stuff because the code and the technology is getting shared. I think that's gonna bring on advancements much faster because now you're thinking
Okay.
instead of a company doing it, now the entire world is able to
Yes.
add their piece to it, and that's gonna obviously. I mean, think about it. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to compare it to sports, but we have these Ronaldo, Messi for soccer, LeBron,
Mm-hmm.
Kobe, MJ for basketball. We have like Otani, like Babe
Yeah.
Ruth, like or for baseball stuff like that. But honestly, these people might be nobodies if every single person in the world played the same sport. Does that make sense? Because there's so much more competition available now. They
Yeah.
might just be like a good player at the end of the day.
Or that, and if everybody was exposed to the trainers and the like access that they had,
Yeah.
like, or the drills, like maybe they're doing some secret drill that's only the top person in the training field has come across, and it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna give this to LeBron. But if everybody did it, and if everybody trained or from an open source aspect had the same insight, you're right.
Yeah. So
There'd
with
be
that's why I think as ChatGPT AI being open source, robot software again AI, it's going to be open source. Hopefully, for most majority of the companies, I think it's going to be a revolution, like the Renaissance level,
yeah.
the industrial revolution type of stuff. I think we're going to go through
Okay.
this pretty soon. But going to what I'm really scared about is the military stuff, where there is 0% chance the government is going to make their AI open source. It's 0%.
Yeah.
There is no possible way that they would do that.
Right. They can't. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
imagine we making the, top secret, I'm going to say spy, which is different. And I'm not talking about the stock spy, but we have these spy radars on naval
Yeah.
ships that's very advanced. Imagine if we open source that technology. Like
No
that would
shot.
never
Yes,
happen, right?
that's why
Ever.
there's so many. Yeah. Uh.
Like the
Just
constructions of our like the blueprints of our submarine, that is top
no. Right.
secret. Like
Right. Right.
very
Secret
few
clearance.
people have
Yeah.
access to that. But it's
Yeah.
like making that open source. That would never
Never.
happen.
Correct. Yeah.
That's why the government side of things scare me a lot in this AI space.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
Facebook, their AI, it's all open source. There you can
Yeah.
check. Government, you will not be able
Yeah.
to do that.
That's a good point. And on the, I'm glad you brought up open source because if I could paraphrase like everything you're saying, I think it's kind of self-regulating because it's open. It
Mhm.
kind of regulates itself in a way that people can check it, um, and it also stimulates new growth in whatever the product that is open source is. But yeah, it's in theory a good thing. But with it being open source, this is a question to you: do you think that helps deter bad actors or promotes or allows for more bad actors? Because it's open source, people can check each other and people can, see, um, hey, this is what's wrong, this is the flaw, this is what's causing to do X, Y, Z, whatever. But people, like you said too, have more access to that and can take that and manipulate that to use it for bad. And now it's open source. It's out there for everybody. Do you think? What do you think?
We kind of want bad actors in the space
Okay, elaborate.
because we want like for now I'm trying to compare it to some for my own thinking too, and hopefully clarify something else. But when you're building software, like imagine Microsoft, right? They would hire, maybe not hire, but maybe they're already in the company, but people to try to maliciously hack these things.
That's in a controlled environment, right? These are just like I
It's
wouldn't constitute
not
that as a bad actor. I would constitute that as a company
that's one
trying to.
example though. That is an
True,
example of
true.
bad actor because
Okay.
Microsoft in itself is a giant company, but
Yeah.
there have been cases where they would hire notable hackers as a contractor and be like, "Hey, hack this thing for us."
Yeah.
So,
I
and
see. Yeah.
yeah, so we want bad actors in the space to try to make sure that this can't be used in a bad way.
Okay.
And then Bitcoin is very good example for this. The Bitcoin code is open source.
Yep.
And we want bad actors in the space to try to make sure that the Bitcoin doesn't get stolen, right? Because that's the whole thing about Bitcoin is you don't get it
Yeah.
stolen. And if you think about it, as BTC prices continue to go up, at the day that we're recording this, it's like 95K right now.
Right.
If some hacker is able to hack Bitcoin, you have every single year, the pot of Bitcoin becomes bigger and bigger and bigger,
Yes.
right? As now, it started out as a couple dollar market cap. Now, are we in the billions or trillion, market cap of BTC?
Also, when you look at that, we do have a crypto episode where we kind of dive into some of this stuff too. Episode 36.
Okay,
Just
episode
to
36. So
self promote there.
Bitcoin's market cap is a little bit less than 2 trillion. It's at 1.87 right now.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like from a motive standpoint for bad actors,
Oh.
Bitcoin is great.
Yeah.
Every single year, the cash prize is going up to hack this
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
But it has not yet happened, which kind of speaks to this like how secure the
Security,
Bitcoin
maybe.
network
Yep.
is
Yep.
because of its open source.
Right.
So yeah, to answer your question, I do think we're gonna have bad actors in the space. It's just natural with every technology that comes about.
Yeah. Well, I know
But
we're gonna have bad actors. The question more specifically was, do you think open source is more of a benefit because of self-regulation,
Yeah.
or more of a harm because it introduces bad actors?
No,
Which
it's
you
definitely
indirectly answered it, which more of a
yeah.
benefit. Yeah.
Definitely more of a benefit.
Thank y'all for all who were listening up until this part. This episode was actually so juicy. We're going to do something different and split it up to a second episode. So stay tuned next week if you're following along with us. We appreciate you. If you're enjoying the conversation, tune in next week for part 2. It's just as intense.